Hello again, welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to the man, the myth, the legend, should I even say Dr. Legend, for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard army. This is a Metal Gear Solid themed army, and I have to say it looks very, very cool. Really like all the conversions, even from the little guardsmen with the balaclavas all the way up to the crazy walk and stuff. It all looks absolutely fantastic, and all the characters that represent different characters from the game and all that amazing stuff. So massive thank you to Dr. Legend for being a legend and sending in some awesome pictures of his army. If anyone else has got any cool pictures you want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page, or you can email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. Without further ado, let's crack on with today's video. So today, guys, I want to talk about Hellhounds, which are one of my favourite fast attack choices for the Imperial Guard. They're a great little unit, and I think a lot of people have a soft spot in their heart for them. There's something so Imperial Guard about having a big old flamer tank that can just zip around the battlefield, toasting the enemies of the Emperor. We've had them for a long time. They're a really classic unit for the Guard as well. And so with the recent changes with the balanced data slate and point change and all these sort of things, and Nephilim, all these changes that have been going into the cooking pot, a lot of people have been really enjoying trying out their Guard armor once again, because as per the latest balanced data slate, Imperial Guard get Armour of Contempt on all of their vehicles. Now, in case you don't know what that is, very quickly, Armour of Contempt is a special rule that GW's been playing around with recently. They gave it to Marines first, but now they're rolling it out to other factions. And it's where if you are hit by an attack with an AP value, you reduce the AP by 1. So if you hit with AP 1, it becomes AP 0. If you hit with AP 2, it becomes AP 1. But if you hit with AP dash, it doesn't become AP plus 1, it stays AP dash. So it's a really nice rule, and it adds a lot of durability. It helps counter some of the AP creep that we've seen in Warhammer 40k 9th edition recently. Now, I also recently took an all tank list to a tournament. If you haven't seen that video, there'll be a link to it at the end of this one. And in that video, my tanks actually did really, really well. And a huge part of that was the fact that I had Armour of Contempt on my vehicles. But one game that I lost, I won 2 and I lost 1. But one of those games that I lost pretty much due to the fact that I was facing Harlequins and I didn't have enough heavy flamers on my vehicles, so that they were able to just tie me up, and it took me too long to shoot my way out before I could eventually, try and win any points. So this has got people thinking, it's got people talking, including myself. What about Hellhounds? Are Hellhounds back on the menu, boys, or are they in fact still not quite doing it? So I'm going to take a look at that today, and we're going to work out, should we be running Hellhounds in our lists? So straight away, let's take a look at what the Hellhound is. What do you get? So you get, for 110 points, you get a toughness 7 vehicle with a 3+ save, and it's got 11 wounds, which is nice. And it also gets an Inferno Cannon, and typically you're going to want to pair that Inferno Cannon with a hull heavy flame. Now, you can put a multi-melter on the hull, you can, which is one of the few vehicles you can put a hull multi-melter on, which is kind of cool. And you can also get a heavy bolter on there, but naturally you're going to want to put a heavy flamer on there, because the Inferno Cannon is like a big heavy flamer. So that way you're kind of getting 3d6 heavy flamer shots. Now, the Inferno Cannon is actually better than a heavy flamer. It's 2d6 shots, it's strength 6, it's AP 1 and 1 damage, where the regular heavy flamer is only 1d6 and it's only strength 5. Also, not to forget, the Inferno Cannon does have slightly longer range. It's got a 16-inch range versus a 12-inch range on your heavy flamer. Now, it's also a relatively fast vehicle, so it goes to 12 inches, and you can put track guards on it. A natural upgrade for your Hellhound is to put track guards on it, because then it's always going fast. It's meant to be a little bit of a cavalry tank. It's meant to be a little bit of a harassing, flanking, slicing and dicing kind of tank. And so it's good when you put track guards on it, which really puts the price up to naturally looking at about 115 points for a Hellhound. But the problem is, guys, is I don't think that their performance on paper matches their performance on the tabletop. And I remain unconvinced that Hellhounds are back on the menu. And here's why. You see, the problem is with Hellhounds, and I've noticed this since the beginning of 8th, all the way through to the end of, well, we're getting to the end of 9th, I assume now, but where we are in 9th edition, is that their damage output just never seems to be that great. It just doesn't seem to, they don't seem to do a huge amount of damage. I have found Hellhounds at everything from like horde units all the way up to, heavy vehicles and tanks and everything. I find them at every kind of unit you can think of, and they never seem to do a huge amount of damage. And that's kind of the problem with them, right? Now, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, yeah, but Mordian Glory, what about Armour of Contempt? Well, Armour of Contempt is really good, and it does make them more durable. But the thing is that Armour of Contempt does more for other units than it does for the Hellhound. For example, a Hellhound with Armour of Contempt is still perfectly killable. It might take your opponent a little bit more to kill it, but it's still perfectly killable. On the other hand, a Lehman Russ, who's now got a 2+ save and Armour of Contempt, and has, you can also pop smoke on them as well, but let's take that out of the equation because the Hellhound can do that too. But a Lehman Russ with Armour of Contempt is not only more durable, it's frankly just tough. It is now a tank. Okay, it's not unkillable, but I have had multiple instances, even with just a 2+ save, and now when I've run them for 3 games with Armour of Contempt on them as well, I have had multiple times my opponents just bounce off Lehman Russes, but you just don't get that same thing from a Hellhound. It's only toughness 7. All the Melter in the world wounds it on 3s. It's only got a 3+ save. Even with Armour of Contempt, you're only on a 6+ save against that Melter pistol. It's not very light, or Fusion pistol, or Melter, whatever you want to call it. It's not that durable. And the worst bit is that they've only got 11 wounds versus 12 wounds, I should say. And the worst bit is when they do go up, they've got a high chance of blowing up and do mortal wounds around them. If you're running an all-tank list, and your tanks are going to be fairly bunched up because you might want to take advantage of something like Inflexible Command, then that's not a good thing. So they definitely get a boost from Armour of Contempt, but Armour of Contempt makes tough things even tougher. And trust me, Lehman Russes are now oppressively tough now. It's really, really good. They feel like a tank, whereas Hellhounds, they don't feel that much more durable. The enemy can still kill them. If an enemy, a dedicated enemy anti-tank unit will still pick up a Hellhound. It just, now the opponent doesn't get to split fire and pick up 2 Hellhounds in one go. Do you know what I mean? But a Lehman Russ will happily, more often, every single game, at least once, will just shrug off a dedicated anti-tank unit. Just shrug off. Oh yeah, last cannons, I don't care. Shrug off. Melters, I don't care. Shrug off. So it's kind of crazy, but Armour of Contempt is better at making tanky things more tanky. And then you need to ask yourself, outside of Armour of Contempt, what buffs has the Hellhound actually received? I mean, it can't take advantage of Hammer of the Emperor, which is a shame. It's not had any points adjustments, which is a shame. And it doesn't actually help you with your secondaries. Like, one of the secondaries that tanks can take advantage of is Inflexible Command, which is where if you keep your tanks within 12 inches of your tank commanders, then they're going to have a good time. You get some victory points from that. But the problem is that Hellhounds want to be off fast and flanking and doing crazy maneuvers, and so they're very rarely going to be near a tank commander. And if they are, then either your tank commander is potentially too close to the front lines, and if you're running an all-tank army or a heavy mechanized army, you don't really want your tanks doing that. Your tanks are your damage dealers. So either your tank commanders are too exposed, or your Hellhound's being held back. He's on a leash. And you don't want to have your Hellhound on a leash. You want to let your Hellhound off. So it doesn't really work with the points. It doesn't take advantage of Hammer of the Emperor. It doesn't really work well when you're trying to think of things like Inflexible Command. So the Hellhound doesn't really gel that well with other buffs that we've had recently. And just looking back at some of the other things, like Hellhounds also don't get to take advantage of a lot of regiment traits as well. So if you're taking like Gunnery Experts or Spotted Details, well, the Hellhound physically can't take advantage of Spotted Details because it can't get the 6-inch range, because it's for weapons that are like 24 inches range or longer. And for Gunnery Experts, it does get a little bit of an advantage. It gets a decent advantage. You can reroll the shot on the Heavy Flamer, but Gunnery Experts lets you reroll 1 dice. So because the Inferno Cannon fires 2d6, you only get to reroll 1 of those. Now it's still nice, but it's not as good as triple Heavy Flamer on a Demolisher. Now the Hellhound will take full, a better advantage of Gunnery Experts and During Repairs. So that is something in its favour, to be fair. But going back to those triple Flamer Demolishers, this is kind of what for me seals the deal as to why I think the Lehman Russ is better. Okay, if I look at this objectively, I'm thinking, right, what is the Hellhound doing for my tank army? What's it doing? Is it there to be the flamer screen for my Lehman Russes? It's like, okay, let's explore that route a little bit more then. I can take a Hellhound for 115 points. Or I can take a Demolisher Cannon Leman Russ for, what, like 175 or 180 points. Okay, so there's about a 65 point difference there. Let's say about a 60 point difference. Now, bear in mind that that Leman Russ has got a better save, has got a better toughness value, and has got more wounds, and comes with not only triple flamer shots, but also comes with a big old gun on top. And it can take advantage of gunnery experts on every single one of those dice. Because each flamer is individual, so you get to reroll the number of shots on each flamer. And then you get to reroll the number of shots on each time that Demolisher Cannon fires. So you're looking at 5d6 shots, all of which you can reroll. And 3d6 of those shots are basically the equivalent of the 3d6 shots that the Hellhound puts out. But then it gets more on top of that. Look, yes, you're paying about 60 points more for it. Don't get me wrong, okay? But you're getting a hell of a lot for those 60 points. When you think about it, if you're taking a Leman Russ, right, and you already got a shitload of Leman Russes in your army, then you could either spend 30 points to give those Leman Russes heavy flamer to help them be heavy flamer screen tanks, or you could spend 115 points to basically get the same number of flamer shots. It doesn't make sense. It's better off you strapping flamers to your Leman Russes than to take Hellhounds to try and screen your Leman Russes. You're actually spending more points. You're not coming out with a better deal there. That's how I see it. Maybe my math is wrong. Maybe my logic is flawed there. But for me, if I'm having to take 3 Hellhounds to screen 3 Leman Russes, I would rather have just taken 5 Leman Russes and then given every single one of the Leman Russes triple heavy flame and Demolisher Cannon. It's the same price as taking 3 and 3. It's the same price as taking just 5 Leman Russes. You know, it's what, like, yeah, easily. So it's 3 Hellhounds is the equivalent of essentially, oh well, maybe it's a little bit less, but you know, it's basically the equivalent of taking 2 Leman Russes, right? So that's just where my mind goes, boys. Now, I could be wrong here. I am looking at this very much from a heavy armour perspective. But when I start looking outside of that heavy arm perspective and I start looking at other armies, I start reaching similar conclusions. If I'm taking mech guard, which is where I've got infantry and chimeras supported by tanks and artillery, then if I'm taking chimeras and I need a flamer screen, I might as well just put heavy flamers on my chimeras. It doesn't make sense for me to start taking Hellhounds to cover chimeras when the chimeras can just become pseudo Hellhounds very easily and cheaper as well. So it doesn't make sense in that army so much. And then it's like, okay, let's take a look at hybrid guard. It's like, okay, well, hybrid guard, the whole point of hybrid guard is your infantry screens your tanks. So I don't need Hellhounds could form part of that screen, but infantry tend to screen better than any Hellhound tank, because infantry, you can get 20 infantry with maxed out weapons, with las cannons, plasma guns, plasma pistols, power swords. You get 20 infantry for almost the same price as taking 1 Hellhound with, with its like track guards on. So again, I just don't feel like the Hellhound quite does what it needs to do. And then you've got to take into account, guys, that the Hellhound absolutely just flatlines when it comes across Armour of Contempt. It has no way of dealing with enemy Armour of Contempt. If you're shooting a Hellhound at an enemy unit in cover and it has Armour of Contempt, let's take Chaos Space Marine Legionnaires or Primaris Marines, those guys are on a 2+ save because they literally get +1 save from the cover, and then the Armour of Contempt wipes out your AP1 of the Hellhound. Now you have ways around that. You have your Astropaths, you have there's like a stratagem that I think allows you to, from Greater Good, that allows you to burn the enemy out of cover. You do have ways around that, but Astropaths, if they're with Hellhounds, they're really close to the front lines. You probably don't want them that close. 18 inches is as close as you want your Astropath to the front line. You don't want them within 12 inches because, then they're going to get picked off fairly easily. And also, your Astropaths really want to be supporting things like your Leman Russes because they do more damage. It then comes down to, what about the Demolisher Cannon Leman Russ? What about that for a bruise tank? And you start thinking, well, it can struggle with Armour Contempt with the Flamers, but the Demolisher Cannon is makes up for that. The fact that it has a main weapon allows it to counter any situation. The flamers allow it to screen, they allow it to be anti-infantry, they allow it to do loads of great stuff, and if it comes across as a really big problem, well, let me tell you boys, I haven't come across a problem in 40k yet that cannot be solved without the copious application of demolisher cannons, okay? It's just, in my mind, it just seems to work out better. It just seems to work better, having that Lehman Russ demolisher with flamers. So that's where I'm at with the Hellhound boys, which is a real shame because I love the Hellhound. I think they're such an iconic tank, but I just am not sure that they're worth it yet. And I feel like they're a little bit of a trap unit. Every single time I have used Hellhounds, I have been disappointed. And every single time I have faced off against someone who's used Hellhounds, I haven't really struggled to deal with them. Even when I was running like pure infantry Templars, and like pure infantry you'd think was perfect for Hellhounds, they could just burn them away, but they basically did no damage, guys. It's such a shame. I think the Hellhound is a trap, but it's a shame because it's such an iconic unit for the Guard. But what do you guys think? Do you think Mordian Glory's got a point, or do you think he's a total nutter who has no idea what he's talking about? Put it down in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to see if anyone else has been able to use the Hellhounds, make them work, and make them a bit more successful. But hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please consider giving it a like and subscribing and a comment and all that kind of good stuff. Any interactivity you could do with the video makes a huge difference. And if you really enjoyed today's video, please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter and going the extra mile for supporting the Mordian Glory channel. It's thanks to the incredible support from our channel members and Patreon supporters that Mordian Glory is now my full-time gig. I never thought it would happen, but it's just thanks to truly the generosity of this community that I'm able to do this shit full time now. So massive thank you. We recently set a channel goal of 100 members by the end of the month, and we have actually already smashed that goal. And so just massive thank you to everyone who has become a channel member. I want to do some shout outs for our latest channel members and Patreon supporters. So I want to say a massive thank you to Strike F3, Justin Hoagie, Neo Cosmopolis, Eric McCombs, Dwarf Hammer, Caligula, Ryan Hancock and Silent Warrior for becoming channel members. Massive thank you guys, it's absolutely incredible. I also want to say thank you to our latest Patreon supporters as well. Gankistani, Ben Thorne, Alon Harfin, Marcus Roberts, Timber the Jägermeister and Jesse Cashman. Thank you guys, it really means a huge amount supporting me on Patreon. It's really appreciated, thank you so much. And before we go, I want to say a personal, heartfelt, genuine, from the bottom of my heart thank you to everyone who signed up on the top tier of Patreon support. It really is just amazing seeing the support that some people are willing to give and just go the extra mile, extra 5 miles when it comes to supporting the Mordian Glory channel. So a personal thank you from me to August Varney, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh and Swordfish Trombone for being the absolute top tier Patreon supporters, Lord General level or higher. Just absolutely incredible guys, I really, really appreciate it. I want to say a special thank you to our channel commissars as well, another really high tier of Patreon support. So massive thank you to Diesel Fox, to Shooter McGavin, to Tom Sutton and to Ross Miller. Massive thank you to every single one of you. Your support is really, really appreciated. Thank you so much. I genuinely can't say it enough. But thank you for watching guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video and of course I'll see you guys next time.